How we doing, everybody? Jay here from Just Technics. Hope you're all keeping well. So, we have here a 1210 Mark II, well, a supposed 1210 Mark II. We'll go into this in depth shortly, which my customer managed to snap up for £150, which I think you'll all agree is an absolute steal. I mean, me being me, of course, I would have bought this for 150 quid, and I think just about all of you would be going out there and going, oh, third turntable, 150 quid, under 200 quid for a 1210, got to be rude not to do it. But this video is going to be explaining some of the things that you need to look out for as I go along, as I always do in my videos, but giving you an idea on cost as well. Because I get a lot of people that send me emails asking how much a service costs, how much parts are to be replaced, and if you've got various issues, what are they going to be looking damage-wise? And it's always hard to obviously give you a full estimated cost without actually seeing the turntable or turntables in person. So with this particular video, I'm going to be going over the basics with you, the cosmetics, things to look for, as well as tearing into the turntable, and also toppling up as we go along how much this turntable is realistically going to cost my customer in total. Without, no messing, no rubbish, this is how much it's going to cost. So I've got my little sheet next to me, which I'm going to be going along with as I speak to you. Let's start with the obvious things. So this 1210 Mark II has been powder coated, as you can see. It looks pretty healthy from what you can see in the video, but when you start looking around edges and corners, it is chipped. There are little bits of the coating that are missing. But it's a shame because it's not a bad finish. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of this particular finish. It's like a silver/white, sparkly metallic finish. The graphics all seem to have been screen printed on as well, which is nice. But it's each to their own. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but someone out there would love this. But it is a shame about where we've got damage on corners and things. And of course, we've got the white the white tone arm assembly, which also looks like that's been powder coated too. Which, as you'll all well know by now, I hate anything on these turntables which is white. It's got to be something very, very special to make me appreciate it. But it is what it is. At the time, I'm sure the previous owner, before my customer, must have loved it. He chose the colours, he's done it, and it does go with the overall silver finish that's on here. It does go well with the white graphics, etc. And also, when I turn this on, we've got white LEDs all over, apart from the pop-up, which is the original colour. Don't ask me why that is. You'd think they would have changed that too. But yeah, it is what it is. But it's 150 quid. So let's think of the obvious. You've walked into a shop, you walk around someone's house, you found this turntable sitting on a shelf, 150 quid. First thing you're going to do is go, take my money, there we go. Now, if you're not prepared to at least throw a little bit of money at one of these turntables, then the best advice would be, unless it's fully working and you are extremely lucky, is either buy it and sell it for spares and make a bit of money off the parts, because they always make a bit of money, or walk away if you're not very competent with obviously doing these parts yourself. And another option is, if you don't want to spend any more money and all you want to do is buy a deck that works, then of course you don't really expect to be paying £150 for a turntable in a really good condition. So in Rosanna Ridiculous, walk away and find something else, which I don't think anybody's going to do personally, but some of them I get through my door, I would highly recommend it. And I have turned a few away over the years that I've just gone, look, it's this bad, you do not want to be touching it, sell it as spares and repairs and be done with it. It has happened, believe you me. So with this turntable then, let's start with the obvious. We've got the powder coating on the plinth. We've got an aftermarket pitch trim that's been installed. There's no shading cloth from what I can see in here. I'm sure that's going to probably prove me wrong when I try taking this apart. There may be a cut down, we don't know, but there's no shading cloth from what I can see. The pitch slider unit stops 3.3. There's something jammed in the slider, and as you can all see from this video too, the LED wants to turn on pretty much when it wants to. So from the zero lock position it works, turn it away from the lock, keep moving it, the LED will want to turn on. In that case, it's intermittent. Yeah, it's intermittent. It wasn't even doing that a second ago, so great. So the slider needs replacing. Again, not the biggest problem in the world, it's included with a service. So let's go over the basics with this. Pitch control slider is included, so we're going to worry about this for the minute. So it's an aftermarket pitch trim. The pitch slider itself is toast, that needs replacing. No shading cloth. Again, not the end of the world. Is there a rectangular felt? There is a rectangular felt, and it's a genuine rectangular felt, which makes no difference to me because that's also going to be replaced too. There's no point putting old things back on if they're peanuts to replace, right? That's included. The LEDs, you may not be able to appreciate this from the video, but you may get an idea from the hue around the LEDs. They are extremely bright. Very, very bright. This is a very common issue that I tend to see through my doors, where some of these guys, where they either do it themselves, pop the LEDs in situ, replace the originals with LEDs, don't know that you have to change something else on the main board, components on the main board, or physically on the boards or in the wiring harnesses to control the output. So the idea you really want is to lower the intensity of the LEDs so that the output is pretty much the same as a factory finish. So in other words, it's not going to blind you and you're not going to be wearing sunglasses every time you want to mix. Because it's the same thing as if you look up at the sun when it's really, really bright and that burns that nasty sunburn that you get when you look into the sun. You get a horrible hue around your eyes. This is what this does if you look down too much, because if they're too bright, the 33, 45 and obviously the pitch LEDs are the main focus for your eyes when you're standing and looking down at these turntables, and it's really hard to not be looking into these LEDs. So these will also need to be replaced. My customer's going for a complete refurb on these anyway, so again, not the end of the world, but they need replacing. So hopefully these have been competently replaced by someone that knows what they're doing, who's pretty handy with a soldering iron if they've done it themselves, or they've given it to an actual shop, business, etc. to have replaced them. But that can also go one of two ways, as you've also seen on my previous videos. So we'll hold fire on that until I have a look in a second. So, yep, Mark II, nothing real too fancy other than the fact that cosmetically it's been changed with the LEDs, right? The power cable on this turntable is the original power cable. There are breaks in the cable. That is going to be replaced. The audio cable on this turntable is the original audio cable, including an original grounding cable. It's not that bad condition, but these are also going to be replaced because no point giving something back with old worn parts. So that's being replaced too. Let's turn this off and let's start the disassembly, shall we? So slip mat off. Let's see how, ooh, that's nice. That is nice. Right, it's got some remnants of some tape that looks like it's probably held down the platter at some point. Let's see how easy the platter's coming off. Oh, that comes off quite straightforward, nice and easy. So, doesn't appear to be any damage from what I can see on the magnet itself. That's always a good start. Nothing too bad, just needs a good clean. The platter itself isn't exactly fantastic, I must admit. This is being sent off for refurbishment work, which we'll go over pretty shortly if I can't get this clean for my customer, but I think he's gonna be going for the full refurb. We'll go over all this in a minute. So platter off, out the way. Oh, also we've got this beautiful broken Mark I Autophon Concord DJ. What a shame. These always break. If you've owned these over the years, you know how easy the actual stems are for the lever lifts are to snap off on these Concords. Hence why they obviously introduced the Mark II version, because the Mark II versions, they have a thicker stem that sticks out and you can actually replace them if they break, which is quite ironic really, considering the fact that they're so thick. I don't think you'd ever break them anyway. So if you have broken them out there, you could just dislike the video, but no, they are very simple to break. I see these all the time where someone's either super glued the stem back on, they've made their own assembly for them. I used to 3D print sections for them with the stems that used to stick out for customers. Yeah, or cable ties was another one. They used to put oversized cable ties around the main body of the cart so you could lift the cable tie. Looks janky, looks awful, but if it works, right? So that's coming off. And another thing to note as well, the tone arm, you won't be able to tell this by looking down on the turntable, but the tone arm is actually bent. It's broken. Tone arm's broken, rest clip broken, and also, as you can all hear, we've got very, very, very loose bearings, if there's any bearings in there. So straight off the bat, we need either 1 or 2 bearings. I can put money on this. I'm very rarely wrong when it comes to bearings. I'm not one of these guys that's going to start making up imaginary invoices when things are stripped down the minute the customer walks out the door and say you need new bearings and arms, etc., when you don't need them. If I strip these down and the bearings are non-damaged everything's visually okay underneath a microscope, and it all calibrates correctly after flushing through the bearings, then great. But chances are when an arm is in this position, which is really, really bad, you can just about get one finger underneath that, then it's going to have taken a lot of impact damage. And I think that the pivot would have eaten into the bearings, damaged the bearings, and the pivots are also going to be damaged too. So bearings, I can put money on, are going to need to be replaced. So let's start the disassembly, like I said. So that's the weight off. That came off extremely easy for the lever lift. Let's now remove the main bumper itself, which is covered in grime. We'll get that out of the way. There we go. We'll take the pitch knob off and the shading that felt off. The arm assembly itself on the height adjuster rings, as you can see, it does move. That's me giving a lot of force here. It does move, which is good because it means it can be stripped down, quite a straightforward job to do. And it's getting a little bit freer as I move it. So that's either going to be the original grease or someone's probably... It actually feels like silicone grease, but real thick silicone grease. One of the two. But at least it moves. It means it can be disassembled pretty straightforward. It's not going to be, you know, what's the word? Penetrant oil, heat, and a lot of swearing trying to get these undone. They're pretty easy when you start getting them going. So that's that. Stop waffling, Jay. Stop waffling. We're going to do all this with a screwdriver today. So we've got 5 screws. We'll get these all off. The screws all appear to be correct from what I can see. I'm usually quite good at telling these off the bat, so the screws have been put in on the correct size. I set so many of these through my door that they just jam any old screw in and hope it's because it fits and does the job. It's the right one, which is just wrong. They're made a certain size for a reason, and they're the ones that should be used. So 5 screws there, plastic cover off. And this, again, this is the first time I've looked in this turntable, so I don't know what I'm expecting. Yeah, let's just take it off and have a look, shall we? Is it going to be a horror story? No, do you know what? I mean, let's look at the obvious bits on here. Before I do anything, I'm taking the power cable out of the wall. UK power plug. No cable ties. I don't really want to get in the camera, so I don't want to get my head in it, but that's not bad. So this hasn't been touched. This is all original. These haven't been unwound and then wound back on. This is all original. There's no cable ties holding any of the harnesses in place, which again isn't the worst thing on the planet, but it'd be nice to spend 2 seconds of your time just tidying, you know, tidying cables up, making sure that when you place PCBs back in the right orientation, that they're not wound round the wrong way so that the cables don't stick everywhere. But it would have taken 2 seconds to put a cable tie there, tuck this out the way, cable tie this together, maybe a bit of harness tape around the inner side of the wire and cable tied that round. Again, it's all straightforward things that are easy enough for me to obviously resolve. So let's see if the see if all of these wiring harness connectors come out without an issue. So that's the first one. Again, connectors are okay. That's the operation-based wiring harness connector. We've then got the pitch. So again, that's kind of nice and straightforward. There's nothing broken there. Then we've got the pop-up lamp. Again, that's all absolutely fine. I'll get that out of the way. Makes my life a bit easier when I take this apart. Power cable, like I stated first of all, it's an original cable. I could tell by the cable itself. It's got an aftermarket UK plug on there, which is not uncommon. But this hasn't been touched. This is all original, which means that when someone's powder coated this, they've literally just removed the plug, or they've cut the plug off, depending on what one you've got, and they've just pulled it out through and taken the board out all as one. Definitely what's happened here. This is all going, so we're going to be cutting the cable tie here. We're now going to be cutting the positive and the negative wires, because I'll desolder all this anyway. We'll then take the tubing off, get rid of the relief grommet, using a nice chunky pair of grips. Comes off nice and easy. This has probably got the relief grommet that's got the cutout in the middle, which is going to be nice. Yep, we'll reuse that. Excellent. Excellent. I've got thousands of relief grommets. It's nice to use them if they're exactly the same. There's no point changing it if we don't need to. If there's no damage or anything. So that's the power cable tied together, ready to give back to the customer if he wants it back, which I highly doubt it. We'll remove the plate, the mounting plate for the cable. Get this out of the way. Nice and easy. And for the eagle-eyed among you that are watching this video, probably all going to me, Jay, look at the top of the board, look where the thermal paste should be, look where the regulator is. Yes, this is the original colour of the plinth. So credit where credit's due. They've actually masked around, it's like they've masked around where this should sit, so it hasn't touched it with paint. I don't really ever see this. Normally, whenever people do this, they just cover everything over, but they've masked around it. So you can see that this was actually a 1210. So yes, the graphics do match, but we're getting to get to this in a minute, because when you look at the back of the base, it tells a different story. But there's hardly any thermal paste on there, which normally tells me that this has just been lifted off and popped back in. I see this quite a lot, to be honest. You should really, you know, clean up the component. Obviously put some new thermal paste on there for safety more than anything, because if it goes wrong, it's not good. It can cost you a lot of money. So, okay, let's get this upside down on my pad and let's tear into it. Let me pause the camera and grab the pad. Okay, so turntable's now on the work pad. Let's get the feet off. That's a good start. The threads all look okay here for the well nuts. That's 2, 3, 4. All the screws look present, and they present and correct. Everything all looks correct here. This is good. So we've got the longer corner screws. We'll use the electric drill for the rest of these. I've charged it up, so I'll quickly grab that one. I'll pause the video. Let's get the other 2 of these out. Lovely. And the outer longer screws. 6 of these in total. 5 and 6. And the remaining inner screws, which are shorter, with the longer washers that are built into them. Which again, depending on the age of your turntables, some of these actually have washers that fall straight off the minute you start unscrewing them. So if you do lose them, I mean, I recommend you don't lose them personally, but if you do lose them, you should replace them. Because without the washers on them, as you can see, the screws, if there was no washer in between them, you're not actually holding anything in. Just going to be a screw hitting the mounting points. So let's see if I've missed any. My majority of these videos, there's always one I miss before I try to lift these off. So all of the longer screws are gone, corner screws have gone, everything there's all been removed. Excellent. Right, push it out of the way for the minute. Lift this off. First things first. Remember I said about the base, and I said about the 1210 and the graphics and things. If the camera can see this, there we go. 1200. So it's a 1200 base. Don't know who's obviously done the work, or if it's been mix and match. I don't know. This is an old thing that tends to happen with these, but 1200 Mark II base. Let's get this out of the way. I think that's the least of the problems, really. The customer's not too fussed about any of this. I mean, he's not even going to be using this for DJing. He's openly admitted that it's going to be used just to listen to records, chill out, have a few beers and listen to some records, and fair play to him. So he just wants this in a really nice, healthy condition. The plates, you couldn't actually see that. Sorry, guys. I was just screwing down the main plates that hold the sockets on, because these were extremely loose. So you've literally got 2 screws either side here. You just literally level, keep everything in line, level up the plates with the plinth as far as you can. Sometimes you can't. You've got to have them fully forward. Just literally just nip these up. A lot of people that have dust covers with hinges, if you see that the sockets are starting to move when you're actually trying to lift the dust cover off, chances are that these screws here holding down the plates with your sockets are just loose. So best advice I'd give you there is follow what I've just done with this video. Take the base of the deck off, tighten these 2 screws up after leveling them, and away you go again. It solves your problem. Where was I? So yeah, he's basically, my customer's he's not using this for DJing. He's not a DJ. He's bought this just to listen to records, have a few beers. It's like a centerpiece for where he's going to be sitting on like a hi-fi stack system, for an example. Just wants a nice turntable. So he's going to spend a bit of money getting everything done. He's well aware of what can happen with these. And I went over a few bits while he was here without tearing into anything, which makes a change, you know, explain the situation. Right, anyway, let's cut these cables off. We don't need these anymore. So instead of just desoldering them, we're just going to cut round them, cut them off. These are only going to end up going in the bin. He's not going to want any of these back. There's no point actually keeping any of these. So the side, these can all be thrown into one of my condemned boxes that I have. Shall I actually, do you know what? Let me pause this. I'm going to quickly just see if I can make this a little bit bigger on the camera. Hang on a second. That's a million times better. You can actually see the entirety of the turntable now. It's because I got my my stand for the cameras, well, my phone's not at the right level I normally do, just so I can actually see the phone as the phone screen while I'm recording. Good old Google Pixel. Right. I've loosened off the sockets. There's a reason why I've done this. It's because after you tighten these screws up, when you remove the screws holding in the weighted section, depending on how old these models are, some of them have stems that stick out, but even if they haven't, they can become a little bit stuck, and it's nice to loosen them off. And truth be told, I take off the sockets to clean them and flush them through anyway. There's no point just keeping them in place and going, oh, that's been cleaned with a cloth, we'll leave that on there, like some people do. So they all get stripped, they all get cleaned, the screws also get cleaned, and the plates that hold the screws in also get cleaned. And you can probably understand now as to why it takes me so long to complete the service work. What have I just dropped? I had something drop then. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, hang on a minute. We've got a rogue screw that's fallen on my mat, and it's just vanished. It's just vanished into the ether. So great stuff. Hang on. I had a quick search for the screw on my mat, and it's literally vanished. I don't understand where that's gone. I've got like literally loads of grey mats that go across my 4 workbenches that I have in my workshop. And they're clean as a whistle. I've cleaned everything up, cleaned around them. I heard it drop down, it's gone. So I'll be replacing that screw. So I'm sure it's going to appear at some point where I least expect it. But either way, that's another screw required that I'm going to sort for him. So weighted sections, standard condition with these. Nothing really too much to talk about, but that can then be removed and popped out the way. And brings us to the interesting bits, I suppose. The bits that everybody really wants to see. So pitch slider itself, let's unscrew this so you can actually see it. So all the wiring harnesses are still there. They've been ripped through, obviously, to take the components out. They haven't stripped anything down who has done this. And I can see that the pitch control is visibly sitting at some weird and wacky angle. So let's see what's happened with that, shall we? So there's 2 screws that hold that on. That's now been loosened to move it out the way. Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's the first time I've ever seen. This is the first time I've ever seen this happen. I bet there's quite a lot of people out there watching this that probably wouldn't have seen this either. Let me just get my light on this. You got money jammed in it. So look, he's not only spent 150 quid on a turntable, he's also got he's got money in it. He's made money. So I have never seen that. So obviously it must have fell out of his wallet or something. It's fallen through the slider and it's actually gone through the housing. So when he's moved the pitch, it's actually pushed through the board. If I try and zoom it so you can get a better view of it. Yeah, you can see, look, it's actually pushed through the assembly housing and sandwiched in between the carbon track board. Wow, that's a first. That's a first. I might have to keep this to the side just to show him, to be fair. That's quite good. I'm going to get some pictures of that. Wow, first for everything here. Usually it's big nasty spiders, which I used to get all the time. And I used to get these imported from all over the world before lockdown kicked in 2020. Wow. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Okay, that solves his pitch issue. And I was absolutely spot on with the shading cloth. So, you know, I said obviously they would input people putting one on or they cut round it. That is exactly what they've done here. So they've cut round it. So that's all going to be removed. Shading cloth installed as standard with all servicing. Harness has still got his cloth and everything attached to it. Let's take out the pop-up. Let's get this lamp back out of the way. Right, pop-up assembly. Fantastic. That should lift straight out as there's no harness tape or anything holding it in. That's completely standard and untouched. So I'm not expecting any horror stories or anything with that really. It is what it is. It needs stripping down, greasing, and changing the lighting on that. So get it back to standard trim form with a new lighting. We're not going to put a lamp in there. We're going to put an SMD in there, a warm white SMD. Last a hell of a lot longer than his lamp, I would have thought anyway. Next thing's obviously going to be the operation base, so the start and stop assembly. So we've got the 4 black screws. So there's one in the middle and then 3 outside screws that hold in the assembly. We'll remove these screws. Don't know why I just loosened that and didn't remove it, but that's what goes on in my brain at the moment. Today's been an absolute nightmare, guys, I tell you. It doesn't rain, it pours in this workshop. There's always something that needs to be done. So there's the screws. Get them out of the way. Remove the switch and its plastic cover, and these things are brittle as anything. That's going to go. Lift off the switch. Lift out the assembly, which came out nice and easy. He says. This is wrapped around the wiring harness from the main board. Soldering's not the worst I've seen for the LEDs. Not the best, but not the worst. That's just non-leaded solder. That's going to be expected, really. That's why you use leaded solder. Flows a lot nicer as well. A lot easier to work with. Get that out of the way. And we'll take the arm assembly out. There's no point ripping into the arm assembly. He said, although, actually, before I do anything, there is a reason why we're going to rip into the arm assembly, because as you can all see here, if I lift this and just tilt this, obviously you know it's all been painted in white or powder coated in white. This would have had to have been stripped apart to have done so. So shall we see what the condition of the internals of the arm assembly are? And as you all know, I don't normally do this on these videos, but we'll take a quick look. Oh, these are some thin old screws holding that back on. Okay. Let's just get the plastic cable block removed. Easy peasy. I don't know how so many people break these. So many people break these taking them off, and I just do not know why. That, obviously, it looks... someone's cut into that. What a shame. I mean, I've got loads of top sections. What tends to happen is people install these and they leave the inner section of the block off. It's a cable support clamp, guys. So if you imagine you haven't got... Hang on. If you do not have this in place and you're simply just putting this cover on, what happens is the cable, as you can see here, will be hitting this sheet metal, and eventually the more you pull the cable, it will just eat into the cable itself. You'll either end up losing a channel completely or channels, depending on how hard you tug the cable. It's not a very good idea to not put that back on. You may even get intermittent connection problems too, where the cable is 1 minute touching, 1 minute it's not touching. So always a good idea to use the support block, but the amount of people that either break these or churn them up trying to put thicker cables on, but this looks like it looks like they've just pulled it from the top to physically rip this off. But I tend to keep hold of these. If the bottom support clamp is missing on these turntables, I will just literally, I'll bin these, but I'll 3D print replacements. It's not exactly a hard job, but these are the most important part, because you need to buy a pair of them in order to obviously to use the whole thing together. So let's remove the plate. Well, the whole thing's been sprayed, even the inside section. Luckily they've managed to, looks like they've obviously gone over the threads. The grease on this looks very old. It does look like the original grease. Oh, nice soldering there. So obviously the arm wires have been resoldered back onto the board. They've desoldered the board and taken the cables out. Not the nicest of solder jobs, I will admit. Again, non-leaded solder, very, very dirty job. That board's going to be replaced regardless. That's very old. But yeah, I'm not surprised at seeing that, but I thought it'd be nice to show you all on camera what I'm going to have to do. So yeah, so the arm assembly would have been stripped in order to have the base obviously resprayed. The most important part of all of this is seeing if the actual assembly for the arm, the gimbal and the support bracket has been oversprayed or sprayed over the bearings or the pivots, because as you can imagine, that's not good. And this is the crux of a lot of people as to whether they need an arm assembly or not. But the reality is you can change bearings, and with the bearings I use, it doesn't really matter with regards to pivots because it counteracts it. Another thing I did here is just use some harness tape just to hold the tube down to the clip because it was broken. But if you look carefully, if I try and hold this central, you can't really see it here, but the arm is kinked and bent. That either needs to be re-kinked ideally if it's got any movement there. On the top section here, I can try and re-angle the tube, but in the likelihood of that happening with this is very, very slim. They can be bent back out. You got to be extremely careful. I'm not getting into that. I'd rather just replace the tube. I make nothing on tubes. I buy them straight from a supplier. It is what it is. If you need a tube, they come with the collars. It is what it is. So yeah, that's not good. But we have got movement there. 1 or 2 bearings will be required. Obviously, it doesn't matter about the pivots too much with the bearings that I use. Doesn't matter with them at all. So the surround for the pop-up hasn't even been adhesive back into place. The original adhesive is there, but that's not a bad thing for me because it means I can actually clean this up and reinstall that correctly. And they're very notorious. They're very brittle, these. So sometimes just removing the adhesive from the plinth itself and removing it from the actual surround can bend and break these. Sometimes you can be very, very lucky and manage to either adhesive these back into the correct way or even plastic weld them back in. But for the price of these now, aftermarket obviously is going to be the better way to go. But if you can be as careful as possible to anybody out there that is attempting what I've just done here, you need to be very careful because breaking this can be quite tricky and you can break a leg off of this completely. So always take your time, be very, very careful. But yeah, so that's the score. Back round the normal way. We're now going to remove the clamp that holds down the main regulator at the top of the board. Get the 2 screws down out of the way here. I'll be entertained to see just how much thermal paste is still on here. But like I said, this is pretty obvious. They've just, taken everything out and put everything back in again without changing anything. And you don't actually, obviously you don't know how old the thermal paste would have been on these before anything would have been obviously powder coated, resprayed, etc. But chances are it's the original, and depending on the dates, which we've got on here, GE1, which is either 91 or 2001. So either way, it's very, very old now in comparison. We're in 2026, so even at 2001, it's like 19 years old. And if it goes the other way, you've got another 10 years slapped on top, haven't you? So it's old and the thermal paste needs to be replaced. It's one of the most important things that people don't realise, that they do have a lifespan. Components have a lifespan, obviously, like capacitors, etc. The values do change over time. You need to keep an eye on that. But unless you really know what you're looking at and what you're looking for, it's very hard to tell. I mean, from a visual check over, you have got bowing on the caps, this one in particular. There is bowing that's visible. The yellow caps on these can be quite notorious, quite bad, but we have to do some value checks. Obviously, what I'll do that when I put everything back, before I put everything back together. In other words, when I actually clean and reflow the solder on the boards, I'll take my checks and we'll go from there. But Yeah, that's not great. Let's just get this loosely off with a cloth. Thermal paste as well, everybody, is an absolute nightmare. So if you get thermal paste on your clothes, even if you get it on your fingers, the first thing you do when you get it on your fingers, run to the sink and clean your bloody hands. Clean them up the best you can, because if you get this on your clothes, you are just screwed. Absolutely screwed. It's lethal gear. So you've got to be very careful when cleaning it. Hence why I wear gloves. Everybody takes the mick out of me for wearing gloves, not realising to the extent as to why I actually wear gloves. And it's common sense, guys, isn't it, really? I mean, you wear gloves to stop your hands from getting dirty. You don't know what you're putting your hands in half the time. So you need to be extremely careful. And as you can imagine, a lot of these turntables I get through my door, a lot of DJs... not naming names, but a lot of DJs like smoking the old wacky backy, and it's pretty evident when you take them apart where you've got remnants of it everywhere, and especially on the feet. That's quite, I don't even understand how that happens, but you get it on the feet, and you would have seen some videos from that before over the years that I've installed them, so I popped online. But yeah, so that's the thermal paste loosely removed. I'm not going to lose much sleep over this. We'll explain what I'm doing with this in a minute. The spindle is moving. It is a little bit on the firm side, but it is moving freely. So that's not a bad thing. That's a good start with this. Before I do anything, nothing's been replaced on this board. I can tell you that straight off the bat. That cap needs replacing as well. I'm just going to probably end up recapping all of them, to be fair. Checking the pots, making sure the pots all move, no jumps. If they do jump, they get replaced as well. But yeah, and obviously the motor IC, that's got the original thermal paste on there. That's been untouched. But yeah, so I'll check all that over when I actually get down to the servicing section part of the board and we'll get through to the job. So this isn't actually booked. This turntable isn't actually booked in for quite a while. It's just nice to get it here. The customer wanted to get it here as he wasn't going to be about near Colchester for quite a while, so he thought we'd get it in early. And with the plans that we have for this, it's good to get it in early so I can get everything done and get it back ready to complete the work that's needed. But yeah, we're just unscrewing the 3 screws that hold the centre point down for the brushless motor. Then we've got the 3 screws that hold down the main board. Very, very, very easy to do. You've got 2 screws that hold down the fuse board. Being very careful when you undo the one that's underneath the voltage selector switch. You don't want to be churning around and eating into cables. There we go, another one done. Then you move this out the way, move the board out the way with the spindle attached, remove the 3 screws that hold down the transformer. Now these can either come off very easily or they can be a little bit of a pain to remove. All depends how the rubber is feeling underneath the screws. And this screw here actually comes out on this particular transformer as one like that. So you put it to one side. Let's see. That's nice and easy. I thought so because of the fact of it's been resprayed. Nice. Right, so next thing is I'm going to angle that slightly so we can get the switch out of the way. Pop it through the holes. There we go. Back in its central position, being nice and careful. Give it a little bit of a wiggle. There goes the spindle. Lift out the board. And there we have it there as well. We'll look into this shortly too. Get this out of the way. We'll go over a few bits once I've done it, all depending on my battery. What's the battery looking like on my phone? Sorry, I just moved the phone, but just checking the battery level on my phone. What was that, 60% or 40%? 41. Yeah, we should be okay. Right, here's the spindle. Again, this is all original, untouched. It's brown as anything underneath there. That needs flushing through, stripping down, all the usual bits I do. Brass polished up. This is all going to be nice, clean and shiny, making sure obviously the thrust plate is all in good working order as well. It's unbent. Nothing has actually hit the platter at any point by the looks of things, or obviously impact damage to the top of the spindle. Telltale signs of that are usually when the thrust plate, which is this bottom section here, is bent. Some people tend to bend these back. But there's also another very important section on these that people don't ever talk about. And obviously on the thrust plate is the central section where the spindle maneuvers around and rotates. They get worn around too. You could buy replacement, really nice quality thrust plates from my friend Kevin over at DJ Spares. So if you type in on eBay Technics thrust plate, his listing will come up. It will come up. I'll put a link in the description of this video for you too, for some of the parts that I'm going to be talking about. That's one of them. It's a thrust plate, if need be, if we need it. Okay, and that is everything out of this plinth. Next thing, let's remove the pitch trim, which I'd imagine would be quite straightforward to remove. There it is. Lovely stuff. We'll leave the adhesive behind. This is all going to be bee blasted anyway, so I haven't got to go down to the extent of, you know, razor blading everything off, cleaning it off with isopropyl alcohol, removal, adhesive removal. Haven't got to do any of that. This is the beauty. So get this out of the way. That's that done. So this plinth is now loose, ready to rock and roll. Okay, let's talk over a few things. Give me just 2 seconds. I'm going to change my camera position. You might even see me. Give me a second. So the big question that everybody's asking now, everybody's wondering, is how much is all of this going to cost to be serviced and completed to the level that my customer wants this to be? So a bit of a background with this again. If you bring turntables down to me for service work without any fancy install parts, no replacement vinyl wrapping that I offer, so things like carbon fibre, camouflage, all the goodies. If you just want to have these stripped down, rebuilt and working, okay, servicing is £175. So if you're paying £150 for a turntable, it's £175 for a service. So to give you a background with this turntable, I was making notes with this, and I made notes just after I paused the video to bring the turntable here in its millions of pieces. But so far we've got servicing of £175. What you're getting for that is, again, fully stripped down, plinth, cleaned, polished the best you can, because again, you do get oil prints and splodges on these that you just cannot remove. That is what it is. It's called patina. There's nothing you can do. So the plinth cleaned, everything clean as much as you can. Dirt removed, grime removed, rave glue removed, everything gone. That's the plinth. You then also, within the servicing cost, you've then got the pitch trim. That will be replaced. The shading cloth, which again is on here, but it's been cut down as expected. That gets replaced. The rectangular felt that sits underneath the pitch knob, that gets replaced as well. So you have a brand new pitch trim, brand new shading cloth that goes underneath the plinth, and a brand new rectangular felt. That all gets replaced. Moving on to the main board, with the main board itself, which again you've all seen, this right here. Cleaned, reflowed with leaded solder, new thermal paste, and within reason, depending on how many caps you have that need replacing, if they're showing visible signs of high usage that need to be replaced and they've reached their service level, if you've got a couple on there, I don't mind. If you need any more than that, you're going to realistically need a full recap. It's a time-consuming job, and unfortunately, it is what it is. So you need a recap if that's the case. I always recommend a full recap anyway. The amount of people that I speak to that do not want to do this, they'd rather just have the basics outlaid on my service and not have anything else completed. It usually happens that people come through the door to have things like vinyl wraps, LED kits installed, and a service. The minute you start adding parts on top that are actually needed to make your turntables function correctly, they tend to skimp on the most important parts of the decks. But yeah, I always recommend a full recap. So this board in particular, this more than likely will have a recap, okay? So with a service, board is cleaned, reflowed, new thermal paste. There'll be 2 diodes and a resistor changed as standard. We're also going to be changing, actually no, depending on what color my customer has decided to go for. I think we're going back to standard trim with this one. So I think we're going to be going back with the red lighting, green for the pitch LED. So there's nothing to be changed on the board, the main board itself, to change the output. It's only when you start popping LEDs into these turntables that aren't the original colors where things start getting a little bit on the bright side. So you do need to really give this some consideration. And again, if you're changing the LEDs with myself, booking in for a service and having the LEDs replaced, you don't need to worry about additional costs in doing this as part of the service. So the parts that are required are not expensive. It's not a hard job for me to do, and I'll do that as part of the service on the main board before I've done anything with your LEDs or replaced them. So you obviously got your red, you've got RGB color mixture, so red, green and blue. You've got white as well. You're gonna go for all different colors, but they're the most popular. When you go for stock style lighting, Chiropto LEDs are what I use for the stock style lighting. Apart from the rectangular lighting, there's not a lot of options that you can actually get in terms of branding for these. Apart from the originals, which again are quite hard to find now, but green, RGB and green, obviously red, green, blue and white are the obvious choices there too. Blue being the most popular of all of the colors that I offer. That's why you see a lot of turntables on my videos that are all in blue, right? So that's the situation with mainboard. If you need things like IC replacements for the motor IC, pitch IC, they're not cheap. They are very, very expensive. Again, over £100, £128-ish, if you can still find them. Some people still have them as new old stock, but they're not current products anymore. Obviously, Panasonic discontinued these turntables back in 2010. Parts are becoming very hard to find, hence why now you see the majority of parts installed within these turntables are all aftermarket. That's the truth of it, whether it's pitch controls, shading cloths, anything, tubes, bearings, it's all aftermarket. If you want new old stock, it's very, very, very expensive. So that's the main board. That's also, like I say, included with the service, stripped down, clean, reflow, new thermal paste, 2 diodes, 1 resistor is standard that I always do, good practice with that, and the odd cap if need be. If you need more, then a full recap is required, and that does get a little bit on the more expensive side. That's that situation. 175 main board, plinth, arm assembly. So this will be completely stripped and rebuilt. Now, servicing does not include bearing replacements. I need to stress this for some of you that want to book in and just presume that everything is included on the costs. It is not. But we'll go into that in another video, I would have thought. I'm purely aimed at new customers. But this is a good example as to, you know, what's going to be included. So the arm assembly will be stripped apart and cleaned and rebuilt. So this is minus bearings. If your bearings need to be replaced, I can replace the bearings for you. There's no nasty having to remill housings and put bigger bearings in. My bearings fit directly inside. You calibrate them, it's done. You haven't got to worry. They're not very expensive. Tubes, so this one here needs a new tone arm tube. This tube is bent. It's actually bent really badly. So this needs a new tube. Tube replacement tubes are obviously aftermarket. They include collars as well, which is the end section here. The collar and tube is usually about £45. So you need to bear that in mind as well if you're looking at turntables with bent tubes. Cheaper tubes that you find online, like AliExpress tubes, trust me on this, I've been doing this for many years now, the AliExpress tubes are not very good. You've only got to give them the slightest little knock and they change their angle, change their position. They are awful, covered in surface mark scratches in clear bags, not worth the money in my honest opinion. But they're your turntables. If you're doing it yourself, it's entirely up to you. There's only one person I use for tubes, and I'll let you know that in a second. So again, stripped down, rebuilt. If bearings are needed, they're a tenner each. It's not expensive. All the labour, this is the other thing, all of the labour involved in doing all of this is included within my service cost. Okay, you're only paying for the parts that are needed. So if you needed bearings, give you a better example. If you were halfway through your booking and you decided to tell me that you wanted to have your turntables wrapped and these were still as they are now in pieces, with everything loosely to one side, ready to go back in, I'm not going to start charging you 3 hours labour to wrap a turntable when I've already got the turntable apart. I'm sure there are people out there that will do that because it is a business at the end of the day. But there's the way that I look at it is if your turntable is stripped, what is the point? It's not good, is it? So it's stripped already. You pay the price that I outlined for the vinyl, and that's basically it. Okay, so again, arm assembly stripped, bearings if required will be popped installed into place, tubes if required will be installed, £45 usually for the tube, bearings are a tenner each, height adjustment sections if these are seized, they won't be seized when you get these back, they'll be re-greased, nice and free moving, Anti-skate assembly all reset underneath to make sure that the rod and the cord spring is all sitting in the correct position, the right orientation. If you require audio PCBs, I also can provide these as well. There's different types that you can get from internally grounded, which is a lot of myths flying around about that online. So internally grounded basically means that you don't need the grounding cable. If you're using these purely at home, they're going to be sitting in one position. My honest advice to you is just to keep them in stock trim and have new grounding cables installed. But either way, that's what I do as part of this. So audio PCBs will be additional, regardless of if you went for internal grounding or just normal grounding. Grounding cables and audio cables are included with service cost too. So this is going to have a new audio PCB 100% because the soldering here is terrible and it is a very old PCB. It's nice to have things refreshed. You may even go a step further and have to rewire the arm assembly, put fresh wires onto the arm. Again, additional cost. If the arm wiring is starting to deteriorate because of age or it's very brittle, then you need to replace it. These are all standard parts that need to be done. You've got to be competent to do it. So to get the best possible end-to-end connection and best signal, I should say, from end of socket to end of cable, you obviously will need to clean out the connector pins, clean the socket, re-grease all of this, new wiring, new PCB, new cables, which are also custom made, a new grounding cable. So from end to end, signal wise, it's going to be clean as a whistle. Channel balancing, that sort of thing, can be to do with the wiring. If the cable's starting to deteriorate, it can give you a lower output. Chances are it's to do with the angle of the start of your cartridge and stylus once it's popped back in. Everything's got to be set back to its correct level to get the correct channel balancing. But again, it is a turntable. You are going to expect certain little differentials there when it comes to channel balancing, but this is all, doesn't need to be explained really. I'm just going off on a bit of a tangent, but that'll all be rebuilt basically. Again, we're part of a service. Pitch slider. So this beautiful one here that's got a penny stuck down the side of it. And again, I've never ever seen this in all the years that I've been doing this. That's the first for me. So I'll get some pictures and pop that online. May even be the thumbnail for this video, to be fair. So I'm going to put that like that. It's probably be the thumbnail. But yeah, slider unit is replaced as standard. So again, aftermarket part. So the sliders that you buy for these now, there's only a few people that actually supply them, but the best out of the bunch are going to be from my supplier DJ Spares if you're in the UK. If you're outside the UK, you've got Christian over at 1200s.com. Okay, they are the best of the bunch with these. There are slight differences with aftermarket sliders with obviously a steeper curve from 0 to 3.3, but it is what it is. If you get stuck on this, you can obviously send me over an email and I can give you more details, and the information regarding that is on the website. The first thing I tend to do with these sliders, which I can't do in this case, but considering what's actually happened to it, it's more than likely damaged the either the carbon tracks or bent the actual PCB itself completely out of shape. So this can't be used. This will just go in the bin. But what I tend to do with these moving forward first is try to rebuild the original sliders. Depending on the condition, sometimes it's best just to install a brand new slider, like with the M5Gs for an example, because there's no difference between them. But it is what it is. With Mark IIs, particularly Mark IIs, M3D and Mark V, I always recommend rebuilding the slider first. If the slider itself, the carbon track's in good standing order, then I can reuse that and I'll install that on a brand new housing. So I've got to use the old housing for it. And as long as the soldering's been correctly placed on the board and it's not been overheated and started lifting pads or pads are missing, then what I can also do there is reuse the original PCB too. Again, these aren't very expensive, but like I said before, when you start adding things together, they slowly start to mount up, whether it's a couple of quid, 10 quid, 20 quid, these things all start to increase in value. So the board on this does look okay, I must admit. So I'll reflow all the solder, remove all the components, remove the wiring harness, check everything over. We'll install a brand new board on there and obviously change the LED from that horrible clear white LED that's on there. Clear is the worst color you can go for anyway, in my opinion. Way too bright regardless of what you do to try and change the output. But the pitch slider is included as standard as a service, and so is the potentiometer and the full rebuild here. So reflow of solder, clean the PCB, etc. That's included. Spindle will be stripped down on this turntable. The brass will be polished, that'll be nice and shiny. It will be completely flushed through, stripped down. The spindle will then be graphite greased, and also have android oil used on the actual stem of the spindle too within the well. And also we then check over the initial condition of the thruster plates, the bottom section I was telling you about, over the other side of my workshop. So we'll check all this over. If they're needed, they're not very expensive. And again, DJ Spares in the UK are the people to speak to, my friend Kevin over there. That's included with the service, the rebuild there, and obviously the polishing is included too. Pop-ups, now these are not included as part of a service. Again, I'm going to do a separate video pretty much covering all of this for the noobs out there that don't actually know what's included, but this is again is going to give you a brief overview of how much things are going to cost and why. So these are not included as a service. If your lamp is still working and you want to keep it on there, you can, but I cannot strip this down. Now, it sounds weird, and you're going to be asking me, Jay, why would you not want to strip it down to re-grease, so you get that nice smoother feel? So not just a straight up like that, it'd be a little bit on the smoother side, so you re-grease the internals after you've cleaned everything up. Simply put, it's because I'm going to be trying to reinstall a lamp that's been within your turntable for over 20 or 30 years, and sometimes 40 years, and chances are you can overheat, you put heat through the wiring, pop the lamp. You've got to be really gentle, and I can't warrant something that's been within your turntable like this, which would have been, you know, a maintenance part anyway, that's 30 or 40 years old. You get it back after a couple of weeks and it pops, you need to bring it back to me to pop a new LED or lamp in anyway. So best thing I suggest is just pay the money and get an SMD installed. They give you a lifetime warranty with the SMDs anyway. That's a no-brainer really, isn't it? So get up as standard, it will be cleaned, the towel will be removed, the lamp will be cleaned. Just bear that in mind if you do decide to go for a service with myself. And then the other thing would be the operation base, also known as a start and stop assembly, which is this little beaut here. So again, ripped apart, cleaned, not just foam cleaned and brushed. I hate it when people do that because it all just seeps through the buttons. So buttons will be individually removed, tower assembly for the strobe will be removed, on-off switch, cogging mechanism at the back, ball bearing, spring, everything clean as a whistle inside, brushed, cleaned, flushed through. New tactile switches, which are the internal switches on the main piece, the PCB for the 33 and 45, that nice clicky feeling that you get, they'll also be replaced. And on this particular turntable, 33, 45, and the 4 LEDs within the on-off strobe tower will also be replaced too. If the start and stop button, which it does sound like it's actually operating correctly, as long as there's no breaks or shorts in the switch itself, that can stay put too. But everything gets cleaned, reflowed, and start from scratch. And as long as the solder's been installed correctly on there and hasn't ripped any pads out, then again, you don't need replacement boards, and boards for these are readily available, again, from DJ Spares, but again, start to add up when you get more than one of them. The feet, cleaned, edges polished. If you had work done by me, which a lot of people that watch these videos obviously have had work done by me, I'll vouch for that one. These are cleaned, rims polished on them, simple as that. If you need new felts underneath, these are actually pretty good. If you need new felts underneath the feet, these can also be installed as well. I can provide them for you. And then we've got the platter. So these are always a difficult subject really when it comes to what I do. So I used to machine polish platters a very long time ago, and I also used to actually strip these down, respray them, and then polish them round. The problem you've got with that is if you don't do it correctly, you can cause yourself a lot of grief. Hence, case in point, the nasty ones that you see on my videos called a class as Frankendecks, which look like they've been literally thrown through a lathe, scratched a massive surface off, or they've simply just got a sanding block and sanded them round. But the ones I tend to get through my door look like they've gone through a lathe with a real thick blade and just etched so much into them that there's no sharp points on the strobe dots where you rub your finger over and you can feel that nice sharpness. There won't be that if you go down that route. So I hand polish these. I hand polish platters. Spend about an hour and a half on each one. This one here, for an example, I'm going to give it a go. I mean, there is actually corrosion on this. My customer has literally just said to me, Jay, I want it refurbished. I want it as good as you can. So I'm going to give it a bit of a clean and see what it comes up like. But chances are this is going to just end up going for the refurb anyway. It's going to cost a little bit. So how much is all this going to cost then? I mean, we're wattling on everything. My total is this. So we've got £150 for the turntable. As you all know, my customer has paid for this turntable, which is a bargain. Even if you're going to take apart the deck and sell the main board itself, you probably get that just for the main board, right? Transformers for these now you cannot buy. You can custom make your own transformers for these. and retrofit them on a PCB. But you're going to be looking a little bit of money to do that, or you buy the aftermarket transformers for these with the fuse boards that you'll readily find online, places like eBay, for an example. They're pretty good quality. Or you just laugh all that off completely and go for things like Master Sound's external power supplies, which again are going to be top dollar, but going to do a very, very good job. Also, a real nice gentleman over in Italy that does some very, very nice external power supply gear as well. It's just doing your homework and seeing what you would prefer. But for DJ use, you don't really need external power supplies. It's all about the noise floor and having the reason you'd have the transformer further away from the turntable is limiting any interference and less noise. These transformers over the years, they start to throw noise into the audio system and it can be quite bad. So for an example, if you put a needle on a record and you leave the turntable turned off, chances are it's going to be completely silent. If you turn the turntable on as you power the deck on and you hear like a low pitched hum or a high pitched whiny noise, but slightly just there, just to annoy you until you put a needle on the record and the whole thing vanishes because you can't hear it, that's usually down to an old use of transformer. So recommendations, if that ever happens to yours, is to change the transformer. Happens with all of them eventually. There's nothing you can do other than change the part over. And again, you got to think it's another 80, 90 pound on top. If you've got two of them, it's more money on top. So as it sits right now, servicing at 175 is my standard cost with this. Tone arm tube and collar at £45. Now I've got these at rough estimate prices for the additional parts because these do fluctuate depending on what suppliers let these go for. You know, they either get lower in price, higher in price. So I just round them up to the nearest quid, right? 175 for the servicing, tone arm tube and collar at 45. That can be in black, silver, chrome, etc. Bearings at £10 each. Labour costs included with the servicing cost. Central section, if required. This is another thing to bear in mind, the central section. So the plastic section here, which the tube goes into, if this has ever had any impact damage on the tube itself, or even over the top, or if something's caught underneath and ripped it up, very high chance that this could be damaged. And what these tend to do is they break and they crack underneath. It's only made out of plastic and nothing major. If they break and that cracks, you got to replace them. Now, back in the day, I used to 3D print them. Didn't really do many of them because they were more of a get out of jail for my regular customers, right? So if you broke your deck over the weekend and needed it for a gig, then you could install this and it'd get you out the crap, basically, right? But before then, give it about a year ago, you need to literally replace the entire arm assembly. So Mark 7 arm assemblies installed in order to rectify the problem, which again is not cheap, about 240, 250 pounds for the arm. And then if you're bringing it in just for that, you got the labor on top of that as well. And I can't do that while customers wait. It's just too time consuming and a lot of work needs to go into it. And chances are you also need to recalibrate the pivot and pivots that go on top for the bearing movement too. And also the alignment for the arm. They don't just work straight off the bat. They could all be different heights, different angles, etc. So it's not a while you wait job realistically. Some people do it, some people don't. I don't do it. I don't offer that. But yeah, so it's either back in the day, you'd either have to replace the entire arm assembly because it's game over basically. Whereas now, aftermarket parts are actually available and they're not very expensive at all. You're looking at about 15, 20 pounds for the plastic section, and you can get them in silver and you can get them in black as well, which is really handy. So you can change the colour of the parts that you want within your turntable, your tone arm. So it's not the most expensive thing ever, but I'll put it down here between 15 and 20. I've rounded up to 20 just to make things a little bit easier for us. So let's take for hindsight that this does require that plastic section. If it doesn't, it comes off the bill. It makes no difference. But let's call it what it is. If it needs that, if it's got damage, 2 bearings, very ready, you tend to do 1 bearing. If that's the case, great. If not, 2 bearings, £20. Central plastic section between 15 and 20 pounds for aftermarket. And don't believe anybody that tells you that they're not as good as genuine. Trust me, guys, you won't know any different. They look identical. They work exactly the same. You wouldn't even know. You genuinely wouldn't know. LED refresh even. So LEDs for the start and stop assembly, pitch, etc. So basically changing everything that you've seen in white, including that horrible original lamp with the warm white output. Everything's going to be ripped apart and the new LEDs installed, including the output level modification I do on the board so that we have the correct output for the lighting. So in other words, you're not wearing sunglasses, it's not going to blind you, and they're going to be nice to look at, right? And they're diffused as well. So basically, no clear LEDs. It's going to be the same color. So with a Technics pitch, for an example, you'll notice that your pitch control, the rectangular LED on your pitch area, is green in color. So when you have the deck turned on or off on the pitch around that lock area, it stays green, doesn't it? Because it's a green color LED. So this is exactly what you're going to get with my LEDs too. So if you go for white, it's going to be a white color, blue is blue, red is red, etc., etc. It's just a nice little added additional thing for you. So the LED refresh for a single turntable is basically 30 quid all in, £30 all in. SMDs get a lifetime warranty on the pop-ups. Nice handy thing to have. That's how confident I am with them. I think I've only ever had one of them go wrong. And that wasn't my fault either. I'm not even going to get into that. It was user issue, user error, what they decided to do. Well, what I was going to tell you. Basically, the customer decided to respray his turntables, and instead of actually stripping everything down, he decided to loosely put newspaper over all the parts and just aerosol can everything. I'm not even lying on that, and I can prove it and back it up. And I've had so much grief from this person over the years, it's crazy. But yeah, so that's the only time they really start going wrong, is if you start to mess around with them and do things that you shouldn't be doing. And obviously, if you're going to be spraying paint over an LED, it's not exactly a good idea, is it? So LED refresh on a single turntable with all of these LEDs is £30. Power cables aren't very expensive, £8 each, so £8 on this one. Tone arm rest clip, dearest I've seen them for aftermarket's £8, pretty much, right? I've pretty much worked all of that out to £306. So it's 150, so we call it 300 quid all in. 300 quid all in plus 150 works out at £450. So your £150 turntable is going to end up setting you back £450. Now, for those of you out there that are in the region of looking to buy turntables, this is where it's very, very important. And the whole point of me saying about this video and doing this video in the first place, if you are in the process of looking for Technics turntables, i.e. looking to buy them, these parts, again, you've already just seen as I've added up here, and everyone would do exactly the same. There is nothing to disagree with on this. If anybody out there within the industry disagrees after seeing videos like this and says the pricing's wrong or this, that, and the other hasn't been done, ignore it, skip and ignore them, because this is the brutal, honest truth of this. £150 for a deck, you're spending £300 on top of that just to have it working properly, okay? Cosmetically, is even more money. So if you're in the hunt now and looking for turntables, you've seen the basic parts that you need to check. But if it's like this one was, unless you're going to sell it as spares or prepared to spend a bit of money on it, then walk away. It is as simple as that. If it's too good to be true, sometimes it is too good to be true. This was a bargain for this and I would have bought it, but obviously I'm in the industry and I'd get this working and either sell it, keep it in here. My greenie meanies are still sitting here in a million pieces as well. There's all different things. I collect them. I'm notorious for it. I hoard everything. So I would have bought this. It just sat on the rack. But yeah, those of you out there aren't going to be doing that. You want to buy it and use it. So be prepared to spend a bit of money. I tell everyone that comes through my door, put a little bit aside just to cover your backside in case parts are needed. I can't tell from an external look if anything internal is required. I'm not going to that level while you're here. I'm not fully stripping down a turntable while you're here. It is as simple as that. But if you're experiencing problems and you've got really bad looseness in the arms are visibly bent, parts are moving on the arm and you can see one part staying still but the other section's moving, i.e. the central section, these parts are not cheap. And so, well, that's cheap, but it's everything together that goes along with that may start boosting the price up. So bearings, tube, the collar, plastic central section, still adds up, doesn't it? So you've got to be realistic on your expectations with it. And even one other thing I haven't mentioned, feet is another thing as well. So again, you all would have noticed by now if you're missing a foot on your turntable that genuine feet for these turntables, Mark II up to M5G, etc., they're not cheap when you buy them separately, second hand. You're probably looking at about £30 a foot. If you've got 2 decks and you bought them bargain basement price and they're missing 8 feet, you're looking £30 per foot. There are good quality aftermarket parts available now, so at least that's in your benefit. You're still going to be looking about 40, 50 quid for a set. So still £100 basically on the feet. And you can also buy Mark 7 feet too, which my green ones here have got. They got Mark 7 feet, but I don't use them with tone arms. It's irrelevant. I use them with phase. That entire thing's completely redundant. But you can still buy Panasonic feet. They're not going to be the same as what you're used to with these. So £450 all in, basically £456 if we're going to be anal about it. But if you've got a pair of these turntables in front of you right now and you're looking to have work completed and they're a similar condition functionality wise with the cosmetics aside, you get an idea of where this is going. It's not going to be cheap. You're going to be looking nearly double. It's a lot of work. I quote between 2 to 3 weeks per booking, depending on my current workloads. As it stands right now, as you can see in this corner of my workshop, which you never would have seen it in this way before, but in this corner here, I'm starting to get empty racks, which is great. But the problem is, you give it another week, these racks will be full again. The next video I do on here, which is another area in here that I've got, this will all be full. Every time you see a video, this tends to be full in the background when I do it. I usually do it on the other side of the workshop. But where I'm getting at is 2 to 3 pairs every week, and I get through, it's 2 to 3 week turnaround on the quieter times. If it's busy here, it takes me longer. In other words, it takes me a long time to complete the work, purely for the fact of I take my time and do things properly. I don't want to rush things through in a day. Servicing can't be completed mobile, and it certainly doesn't take an hour, 3 hours to complete. You're doing the bare minimum if you're doing a service in 3 hours. So in other words, if you're stating that you're only repairing a board, then great. But if you're now saying that you're servicing an entire turntable, it's going to be done within a day, unless you've got parts readily available there to complete things in that timely fashion, parts that you're ready to install and they're sitting there on a shelf, then it's quite doubtful, really. I mean, there's obviously I've got some really good friends in the industry that can do it within a day, but they have parts ready there, so they take parts out and place new parts in, and they're already on boards, etc. But you're paying the extra money for that, so the service is available like that. But again, it's one of those things. It's expensive stuff, guys. So that's pretty much what I've got to say for it, really, everybody. I mean, so the end result of what's happening with these turntables, like I said, was it's going to be cosmetically changed. So my customer wants this back basically as standard as possible. He wants this looking like a 1210 is what he wants. Even though it's got a 1200 base, it's a 1210 assembly plinth. So he wants this back as a 1210. So it's basically going to be sprayed back into like a charcoal black, a flat black, or a satin black with the graphics installed. Now, I'm not doing that, because as you all know, I only get involved when it comes to vinyl wrapping. It's a lot cheaper than having spray work completed, as you all know. And custom printed's another story too, which I'm also doing. But these are going to be going to my very good friend Sam over at Pimp My Decks. Sam is an absolute legend. You've probably all heard the name by now in the UK. Unless you're under a rock, you would have all heard of my friend Sam. Pimp My Decks. He offers respray work, servicing, repairs, does Pioneer gear, even Vestax, does all sorts of bits and sells parts. So he's going to be respraying these. He actually sprayed up my Lamborghini green ones in the background here, my greeny meanies. He resprayed the plimps for me on these. Done an absolutely amazing job. So this is going to be resprayed. The arm assembly here is going to be going back to black, basically. Everything here is going back to standard. So the base, assembly, gimbal, support bracket, that's all going to be going back to standard. He'll be doing that for me. And where I'm getting at with this is all even more additional cost. And then we've got the platter. Again, I'm going to try cleaning it, but my customer wants this done anyway. I'm still going to try and give it a clean for my own shits and giggles, basically, guys. But this is all going to be cleaned and given to Sam in a presentable condition, so he's not just sitting there going, oh, I've got to clean it before I do the work. It's all going to be clean. Prep work's really important when it comes to anything on these. And if I spot things like threads that are a little bit chipped and screws don't go in properly, this is why you take your time to do things like this. So they get cleaned, prepped, popped in fresh poly bags and sent off to have the work completed. Platter as well. I mean, don't quote me on this, but this is also going up to Sam. I'd say between 100, 130 pounds, something like that. But again, it gets stripped like I used to do. I'd imagine he'd strip it down, polish up the platter the best you can. So polish up through a machine. So you polish it up, spray the whole thing in the flat black, run it through a lathe. I'd then imagine he probably either run it through a lathe after putting clear coat on, and so the lathe will then cut out the strobe dots and cut out the lines with a jig at different angles. or he does it independently, does it in different surface ways of doing it, including the top, but that needs to be done. So you're pretty much on top of the costing just for what I've stated here. Was it 450? Paid 456 technically. My £300 cost, you've then got an additional amount. It's probably going to work out about the same with the plinth, the arm, and the platter. So your bargain turntable, if you decided to have everything stripped and resprayed, it's going to cost you probably nearly £700, £800 to have done. And that's when you've got to start thinking, do I want to do this, or do I want to just hold fire and go for something else? So if you've got a pair at home at the moment and they're in really bad condition, and like I hear from so many people, I want my turntables looking like new. It's all well and good wanting them looking like new. You're never going to match the paint identically. Never, not in a million years. 1200 or 1210. The shades are all different. There's no way to match it exactly the same. Panasonic never gave the RAL code for these. I know that for a fact. You cannot match the paint unless you give this to an automotive sprayer and say, right, match the corner here that's the cleanest, scan that code, scan the colour for me, put it through your computer and give me the closest match. That's what they actually do. 1210 is exactly the same. 1200 and 1210. So that's basically it, guys. There's nothing wrong with having work like this completed, but as my customer wants with this, without me rambling, he just wants to use it as a hi-fi deck, basically. He's not fussed on DJing with this at all. He just wants to be able to take it home, put some records and have a few beers and the weekends and stuff and just enjoy it, play his records. So for him, he just wants it fully working, looking good. He's prepared to spend the money to have it done. And good for him, because it's going to look fantastic when it's completed. It'll be fully working, under its warranty, everything that needs to be done, and he's happy. No messing, he's going to be happy. But also it can go the other way as well. You know, someone brings a pair of turntables down to me, it needs 1,000,001 things doing, and they expect to pay peanuts for it. When in reality, you're dealing with things like this, but without the respray work, it ends up just as expensive. And this is something to bear in mind with this. But I hope this was actually helpful for you. I wasn't really planning on going this far into it. I am going to do a separate video going over bits in depth, purely because the amount of people that go through on my website and ask me 1,000,000 questions regarding servicing. The cost, how much it costs is on the website. How to book couriers. Do you book couriers? What do I need to put them in to send them? All on the website. But I'm going to do a separate video that's going to be public on the page, on the YouTube channel, and linked into the website. So when you go onto the website, you see this video that answers all of your questions. So if you haven't booked in with me, and you are looking to book in with myself, definitely something to keep your eyes peeled for. To do a very similar job to what I've done here, but just go over everything in easy to understand, in such an easy to understand way that anybody can understand it. Right, I can explain it to my other half and she'll know it. And to be fair, she's used to me now for near enough 10 years doing this. She knows how to rebuild one of these. She knows things more in depth like me with some of this stuff. It's crazy, but that's just the joys of self-employed, being with someone that's self-employed, I suppose. Rattle on about your work every day when you get home. But there we go, guys. That's basically it. If anyone has any questions about anything at all, please feel free to send me over an email. So you'll all know the email, also the website by now, which is justtechnics.co.uk. The contact form is on there and the email address is stated on top of the page. And you can contact me through the website as well. So any questions, please feel free to send them across. One thing to note, I do not touch turntables outside of the UK. I stopped that in 2020. It became very, very expensive, and warranties as well were an absolute nightmare. And case in point, pop-up lamps. If you're keeping original lamps and a courier decides to be heavy-handed with them and they pop the lamp, it is what it is. What are you going to do? Send it back and pay delivery again? I'm covering it by warranty. If it's a part that breaks on the way there or the way back, on the way back to you, and I've replaced it, I have to get it back and complete the work. Find somebody in your location. If you're over in the States, Christian at 1200s.com is definitely your first go-to person. If you're in the UK, there's a fair few of us out here now. I mean, it's not a hard thing. You're sport for choice with the amount of people, but just do your homework, read reviews, look at recommendations from your friends that are probably all going to be vinyl DJs anyway. Just do a bit of homework online, but look for trustworthy people that actually know what they're doing and aren't just going to fob you off and take your money and then give it 6 months down the line, 4 weeks down the line, whatever, you're going to run into issues. And unfortunately, that is what happens. And I have to repair the work. And so does my friend Sam over at Pimp My Decks. And there you go. Right, so anything I talked about, additional parts that that you can buy yourselves, I can link them in the description. So if you are handy with a screwdriver and fancy getting involved with a few bits that you can do yourself competently, then I will put links in the description for you. So until next time, guys, thank you for watching. We'll do some more videos like this, I think. Got my camera set up how I like it now. We've got an actual area in the workshop now, which is great. So I could do some videos where you actually see me with my lovely dodgy hands and my, I don't know what's going on with my hair today, Jimmy Neutron hair. But we'll do some more of these. So stay tuned. This is the first video in a few months, so I have rambled on a bit. But it's expected. It's been quite a while. So until next time, everybody, thanks for watching. And I'll see you all very, very soon.